What we have here is we have a new app. So for those of you who have been following along with these videos, we are not using that office hours app. We have a new Workflow Wednesday app where we have a pretty simple relationship from clients to jobs to quotes with some tasks and products included with that. So what we have is just really simple quote information from that client itself. As you can see, it's information that you would get from almost any form you fill out online. Something we can do that we actually thought about including in this is showing you how our email parser can bring in that information from your website. So if you guys have any contact form and you wanted to have the information from your website populate into a Quickbase clients table or maybe a leads table as you're quoting, you can have all that information pre-populate, and you could actually even kick off some batch processors to have that run automatically. So we didn't want to necessarily get too far into that before we got started. So I'm just going to show you how to get your quote generated. So what we did, and this is a little bit different than our other office hours, is we pre-made everything. So for those of you who are not necessarily familiar with our products, everything up to the line items table, everything to the left of that is all just generic Quickbase tables. So if you build your application and you kind of started from scratch, you might find yourself having these tables in there. But when Juiced Technologies comes in is where you have your document templates, your subtables, as well as some JuicedSign tables and a text message activities table. So today we're going to be going through Exact Forms Plus, which is your document generation, your generate quote button. And then you're also going to have JuicedSign, which I'm going to go through and explain very simply how to get started using that and how to send that quote out for signature via JuicedSign. And then lastly, we have just some reminders with Text My Quickbase. And now Text My Quickbase just allows you to send and receive text messages in and out of Quickbase. So I'm going to go through each one of these, how they work, and why you would use it in this workflow. So to start from the top, if you're at your client, and let's open up my client here, Matthew Tilling as. Now, again, like I said, this is as simple as it gets. So this is anything you might get from a contact sheet. So if you went to our website, why not show you? Because we do this ourselves. You go to juicedtech.com and you go to contact, you might see something like this. Super, super simple contact form. And we can actually bring this type of information back for you because this is all you really need to get started. So as you can see here, we have first name, last name, company, phone, email, and address. So we pull in that information. And now we could also add a job for this. And the job might be based off of what add-on they're interested in. It also could be industry specific. So if you're a construction industry, maybe you want to have options like demolition, reconstruction, maintenance. Maybe you want to have someone who's going to be coming in and doing other construction related activity that, inspections. So you can have all of those as your options here. And we could also have a job pre-fill out for you. So let's say the job products. So we have some construction related jobs here. Maybe they want a new air conditioning unit. It is summer. You could have a status where it's pending. Start date, maybe it's today. Estimated end date, let's put it at September 30th, and we'll fill out that actual end date in the future. Cost material budget, we're not going to fill any of that in at the moment. We're just going to go ahead and save this. And it takes us back to our client. Now, based off of that job, you could also add a quote. And you should be able to bring in some information on a quote. Now, quote number, it's something that you could have pre-filled out as you may want. We'll just put 1, 2, 3 in there. And you may want to assign it to a specific salesperson. I'll just assign it to myself. We got some team member information fill out for you there. And then you might want to add those tasks for the products based off of what your discussions were with the client. So maybe they filled out what they're actually interested in here. And these are things that you might want to be able to fill in automatically. Again, maybe that's what we'll show with our email parser tool in a following meeting, because that's actually really powerful to pre-fill this information so that your salespeople don't have to fill in this tedious work. They can skip the guessing. But let's go ahead and add a task. So now we have a task name. Maybe it's, inspect, current unit. Review the current AC unit. And that task date is maybe for today. As you can see with these new date fields on the new forms. And again, we're going to assign this to maybe a team member in the field. We'll put this to Justin. And, you know, he let me know that he spent about half hour on it, and that's going for 100 an hour. And that's related to quote 1, 2, 3. And I also know that we had another task where we had Justin go out into the field again and, you know, install AC unit and do full installation for AC unit. That test date will future date that. We'll do that for Friday. And again, we'll assign that to Justin. And that time he spent 3 hours, and that hourly rate is a little bit higher, $2.50 an hour. And I'm not sure why that didn't relate back to that quote, but we'll have that saved back to that quote. All right. I'm not sure why that didn't save that quote number, but we'll go ahead and hit save. It actually looked like that quote never saved, Keith. That's interesting. I bet that didn't save. It did not. Very interesting. I think with the new forms, I was too quick to jump and hit add task before hitting save. That's on me, because I didn't hit save first. I just hit add task. So let's see if we could just re-relate those. So this is a little Quickbase troubleshooting. So we see we have these two orphaned quotes here. But they should have these tasks related to them. How did they just make 3 quotes there? Have you ever seen that before?
They haven't been using new forms, so
Yeah.
got me.
Well, that's you're always experimenting when you're on these new anything new. So I think somehow we added those quotes there. I'm definitely perplexed by that. So let's go ahead and see if we could add a line item and see if it'll actually save. So it's related to this quote number. Yeah. New forms can be a bit confusing. You know, it's definitely a new product for everyone, including here. You know, we're still using these for the first time ourselves. So we're hoping to continue to learn. If you guys have any tips or tricks, please feel free to include them in the comments so we can kind of see what your thoughts are. Because this is, you know, of course, new for everyone, just like when new reports came out, everyone's still learning on the fly. So we can go ahead and let's use one that we already had built out, where we had our tasks already made and our line items already made. We'll have to go back and see if maybe towards the end of this call and figure out why we were got to fill out the actual total include. That's what's the subtable. Yeah, we'll have to figure out why those made those extra quotes. But as we have our quote now filled out now with some sample data here, with Exact Forms Plus, you can generate your sample quote. So because this is a demo, maybe you want to include something like a watermark. So here's our different parameters. And as you guys know, especially those who have used us before, you can change these parameters to do many different things. And we also have a bunch that we might not be including. So if I navigate to our help site, and one of the best ways to get there is just hit help on our website, take you right there. You can go into Exact Forms Plus, go to our URL parameters, and maybe you want to have a watermark on this. So you can look and you can find something called WM. So you can see that we have a lot of stuff included for this watermark. And this is something that you can include if you wanted to. And now maybe I want to have exactly this. So I can copy this because I don't want the client to think that this is the final copy, which it certainly is not final copy. And I can put it in just like that. So now, when I go to generate quote here, I'll have included a draft across it so that the client knows that this is not our final copy of the quote. So these are just different options you have. We have tons and tons of extra parameters here that are not necessarily included by default. So if you guys are interested, especially those of you who already use Exact Forms Plus, in getting a few more things of value out of the tool, please feel free to navigate to our help site or reach out to ask questions about how you can get more value out of this. There's a ton of options here that not everyone utilizes, so I definitely recommend taking a look. So you can see now we have draft on this document all over, but you can see that we have Justin's incredible test company with our subtable of labor and materials. Now, maybe you want to look at this, and this is a good opportunity to say, okay, my subtable looks good, but maybe I want to have my coloring look different. Maybe I want my headers to match my job quote, or maybe I want this to be center aligned. Questions I frequently get is, how do I edit my subtables once I already have them? And a lot of people think that the best thing to do is to navigate to the document subtables table, which you absolutely can do, and edit the configuration from here. But if you have many subtable configurations, you may find it easier to actually navigate straight from your document template. I actually have seen that we have a lot of clients who hide this document subtables table because they don't want their builders to just make a subtable on the fly without relating it to a specific document template. So that is definitely something else to consider. Now, for those of you who are new to new forms, as I am as well, you might notice that the report links don't show up as they used to. So let's go ahead and add that new report. So if I go to report, choose reports, document subtables, and let's go ahead and do list all. Let's hit save. Let's see. We should have our 2 reports shown now. So now we can see our 2 here. And unfortunately, on our list all, we're having a little issue seeing those edit subtable configurations now. So I guess we'll have to open that up. You're already viewing this record. Well, we'll have, I don't believe I am, but we'll open that up. And you can see we actually have this new box that opens, and we'll hit our edit subtable configuration here. Now this is for our line items table. And let's see. So our line items tables here, right, Justin? Is it the materials? I believe it is.
It is.
All right, thank you, Justin. So let's go ahead. So we have our line items tables for materials. Our filtering is good, but we have our fields here, and our fields have our new column names. So for those of you who don't necessarily use subtables all that often, the best way to know this is your type is like your field type. So if you're using currency, you're probably going to want to have a currency field that might come up as a numeric. And if you wanted to change the column label, maybe you don't want it to say related type product price, because that doesn't necessarily read right to your clients. You might want to use a new column label. So you want to write out price per square foot. Now, you might want to see something like a total. So we have our actual total field here. So as you showed before, you can change the label just to show total, but maybe you want to grand total this option here. So if you're going to do any totaling with your actual subtable itself, make sure to check out the advanced settings. The advanced settings aren't necessarily clicked on as often as others, but you can do a lot of changes to a specific column's properties by hitting that advanced settings. So for this one, we're grand totaling. So I can go ahead and hit save changes. You always should hit save changes if you want the changes saved. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and we're going to go ahead and do next. We don't need to necessarily sort by anything or group by anything, but you can see that we have our grand totaling label options. Now, this is a common question I get from clients when we do setup or we work with them on a support hours is, they think that this is the grand total. So if you read the text here, it says display text for grand total row. A lot of clients think that that means which column are we grand totaling, where that's actually not correct. We're using this to say what column should we display the text for the grand total. So we're using actual feet used, not actual total. So we click that one, so we show total on the left, where if you look at this quote, you can see total comes up here under square footage used, and then we actually grand total that last field. As you can, I see we have a question. Sorry, Amy, I want to make sure we get time for this. Is there a way to get a total row label to right justify so it bumps into the column on the right instead of wrapping? Also, is the way to vertical center the total line, just to verify the column to the left. Is there a way to get a total row label? Keith, can we do total rows? Because what we can do on rows is we actually can include an item counter, but I don't think that's what you're looking for.
So she's looking to justify the value that goes into that column that you select.
So if I hit align right there,
Yes.
maybe that might.
Yes, if
answer
you
your
align
question.
right, that will justify it. But you can't vertically, like it, so you want to vertically, adjust it, the label, but so maybe the font of the label is smaller than the font in your total, so I can see that's why maybe you would want to do that, but we don't have you to do that.
And she followed up with, but it still wraps when right justified. So let's see.
Well, it's gonna wrap if the label value of the label is gonna be wider than that column itself that you're putting the value in.
Right,
We can't stop that.
right. What you'd want to do to best combat that is whatever column you want to have to display. You want to make sure that you have this one be a little bit bigger. So if you have this at 100, the actual width of the column itself is going to make a difference. So maybe you want to make that 150 to account for your grand total or subtotal label.
It's a good question. I mean, if you go back to your document, Matt, where it shows the total label there. See, yeah, the word total there, you could justify that obviously, but if it was going to be wider than the column width itself, it's going to wrap. And we don't allow you to we don't merge the total line, because if we merged all of the columns, that would help, but we don't do that.
Right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Let's save changes. Next, let's make this right aligned like we said. Next, and one thing I want to do too is, you see that we have this table alignment as left. Maybe we want to make that center just so it's a little bit more in the middle. We are going to display column headers here and table borders, but maybe we want to have the table header background color a little bit different. Now, I don't know the exact hex code of that blue, and what I could do is I could grab it if I had a handy dandy maybe Snagit tool or something like that. But we'll try to get that in close. And that's like a baby blue, so that's kind of hard to mimic, but we'll go with something like that. And of course, if you had something to grab the hex code, you'll be able to get that exactly as needed, and you can just throw that in right there. Same thing for the font color or any of the outside bordering colors. So you really have a lot of a lot of options when it comes to styling. So please keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and save, close, and what will happen is my document template 3 is going to update. So let's just go back and, out of curiosity, just see how that looks. It's only going to update one of those subtables. Let's see that right justification. So now we have our center aligned table here, and we do have a right justified total. I'm curious if we were to not show vertical borders, Keith, although total would stop there. It would look more like a merged column.
Yeah, but it's not gonna, the problem that she was having with the
Still gonna
wrapping,
stop
if she
there.
puts it in a smaller column, it's not gonna help there.
Right. Right. Totally understandable. Good question. But I just want to quickly show you guys how you can make adjustments to your subtable. Many of you who may be watching this in the future may have inherited something like Exact Forms Plus from a previous admin. So maybe you didn't get a one-on-one with myself or a colleague here. So if you never got a one-on-one on how to use the subtable configurator or how to use any of our tools, the YouTube page is definitely a great place to start. But hopefully you can just see the tools that you have in front of you. A lot of it is very intuitive, but please reach out if you have any questions regarding those. We're always happy to help and help clients kind of get a better idea of how to utilize these tools to their fullest. But once you have your quote and you already have it ready to go, now you may be ready to send this out to your client and you might want to have them sign. Now, I'm having myself be the signer here, but let's just go through JuicedSign because JuicedSign's new. And for those of you who might have started with JuicedSign or are interested in JuicedSign, this could be a quick tutorial for you to get a better idea of how to get started. So what I like to do is I like to have my send to JuicedSign button right at the top. Now, this is obviously the most important button. This is your send document via JuicedSign button. If you were to click here, you would see our UI come up, which is going to give you a preview of who you're sending it to, what their name, their email address, their signer options are, and if it's captive or not. We have something really neat here called preview agreement. And this is something that not everyone necessarily needs to use every time, but when you're doing your setup, and I'm going to go through a little bit of this setup in a second, but when you're going through the setup, you may not know where you want to have people sign exactly. So instead of having to send out a physical document and potentially waste some of your agreements on these specific tests, you can use the preview agreement so you can see, okay, where on my quote am I having my client sign? So that's a really nifty tool. I really recommend using that. That does not count towards your transaction logs. So definitely use that if you're starting off. Of course, we have a refresh here. And this is just a manual refresh that you can see things appear at the right moments. And I'm going to go now into your agreement subject and email message. Now, the subject and email message, this is when we send out the JuicedSign for signature. This can be easily customized to meet your needs. So for this one, we have, client first name, please e-sign attached quote. So you can include dynamic text from Quickbase because this is a formula text field. As the same with agreement email message, that is also a formula text field. So you can use any dynamic field from this table. Really important so that your client knows that this is personalized to them and it makes their lives and makes them feel a little bit more comfortable as they're signing this document. We, of course, then have our signed document, which we do already have a signed agreement in here because we did send this once, but we'll send this again in a second. We have our signed doc name. Again, this is formula text, but this is how you're going to save the document. So you can see that this one's a little bit older. So it says JuicedSign agreement. Now the next one should say JuicedSign quote. We have our agreement certificate, which we're going to populate this time. We also have our document type, which doesn't necessarily need to be required to be filled in, but it does help you keep track and can potentially be used as another dynamic field, as well as our JuicedSign status and our default sender. So it's being sent from me. Up here back on the top, we have our expire warnings and our reminder warnings. So this is basically saying after 3 days, please remind the client to sign and have them reminded every 3 days until 120 days go by, in which case, please expire the document. So you can have this go out as frequently as you want. These are our defaults. Please feel free to edit these as you like. We have our agreement recipient string, which is super important. So I can just open this up quick. This is another formula field here where I'm able to identify fields in Quickbase of who I want to send this to. Now, this may seem intimidating, but we're going to give you the exact format that you need. If you need a second signer, I can uncomment this out. We'll also give you the exact format there. If you were to hypothetically need a third signer, my recommendation would be to grab the line, copy, paste, and you can then change it to 3. And you might want to have it be 3 here as well. Now, of course, you likely don't want to have it be, the same person's name. So maybe you want to have this hard coded to be someone specific. Maybe you want to put that as yourself. Oh, got the at. I can't spell. Just a sec. And maybe you want to also have, that's client name. So let's flip that. So you can see as I'm making mistakes here, you might want to have your name here. And then your email here. Now, if you just follow the same syntax, you'll have a lot of, no trouble. And then you have your signer options. And maybe you want to have this be receive a copy. You might also notice here that I have true. If you look actually at our syntax at the top here, captive recipient true. I have for my signing experience. So I want to sign right in here for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll just comment those out. And that's your agreement recipient string. If you have questions on those, we will have videos out there that are specific for that recipient string and tell you all the options you have and how you can edit those a little bit further. Lastly, we have our agreement doc FIDs. So this is probably the last and most important field on here. You have 28 and 3. Now that might not make sense to the blind eye, but if you open it up and take a look, it says the input file attachment FID. So what field contains the file attachment you want to have sent out for signature? And then for the template ID, what template contains this file? So if you look up to the quote information, EFP document is field 28. And if you noticed before, when we were looking at our document templates, we're using document template number 3. So we have 28 and 3. So we're identifying, okay, on in field 28 and using document template 3, that's what we're going to have sent out for signature. Now, there's one last thing when you're doing this for JuicedSign that you really need to consider is, like I was mentioning before, the recipient tags. So if I open up the JuicedSign recipient tags, which you may see here, my related recipient tags, I have just a few tags here so that you can actually go in and sign the document. So we have our signature tag and our date tag to keep it as simple as possible. So I'm just going to go through one just so you guys have an idea of what it is. At first, you should be creating these from the related document template record. So you'll see related document template 3, and that's a quote template. Now, recipient ID 1. The reason why it's recipient ID 1 is because it's the first person to sign. So if you want to have multiple signers, you're going to have in order based off of those signers. So recipient 1, maybe 2, 3, 4, and so on. That tag is going to be assigned to them. That's the best way to explain it. So if it's recipient 1, the first signer is going to be the one signing it. If you want recipient 2 to sign that tag, you have to make sure that this is 2. Tab order is saying basically what order are they going in when they are signing, if they have many tags. Putting it as 99 basically ignores that, so you can keep that as 99. That's our default. Name and label, I would put that as something unique and something that's clearly identifying what that tag is for. So signature 1 for our signature type tag, which that's what we're doing. Our type of tag is a signature. Our QB update field, we're not doing that here. And we're not doing that for signature tags ever. But say you had a text type tag and you had field 100 in Quickbase was, maybe it's client title and you wanted them to fill that out. So maybe they filled out CSM in your JuicedSign record there. It would actually bring back to the master record CSM as the title. So that could be for field 100. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're ever trying to bring back data or bring back text from JuicedSign, you're going to want to fill out here the field from the master table you want to have them update. Lastly, and probably most importantly, the anchor string. If I were to look at this quote here, somewhere hidden behind here, and maybe I can control F this, /S1 should be there. So /S1 is behind the scenes here. And I don't know if I can find it right now because that's actually in a PDF. But if I open that up in Word, I should be able to see it. So /S1 is behind the scenes there. And that's where we're identifying the place on the document you want to have them sign. So pretty simple and straightforward in that sense. But that's the exact spot on the document you want them to sign. And then for your XY offset, if you guys remember algebra back in the day, you have your XY axis. X is going to be horizontal and Y is going to be vertical. So if you want to have it moved 0 pixels to the right and -5 pixels actually up, it's inverted, you're going to use that XY. One other thing I see here is we have this width identified. Now the width I think is really small at 25. So I'm going to make this 125. So that that actual tag itself extends out 125 pixels. And that might not even be enough. I have a long name. So let's go ahead and see how that looks. So I'm going to send now to JuicedSign. And again, for those of you who might have came in late, we're sending a quote out via JuicedSign, a quote that we created. And we're sending this out via JuicedSign. Now, this would be something that your sales reps would be doing. Not found D1 and S1. So maybe that's why I wasn't finding it. So let's see when the last time was we changed this template and if it was removed. This is a good thing to see. So let's go back and let's open this error up again. And this is important to see, and we're going to fix this right away because this is not a hard fix, but something may have been removed. I'm not sure why. Maybe a previous copy was uploaded, but it says unable to create an agreement, anchor string not found, /S1 and /D1 for tag placement. So this is a pretty clear and obvious error message. So you should be able to get the gist from this, but to explain it to you guys, that anchor string that I was just talking about. So if I pull those back up, if I pull up my recipient tags, let's go back to my /S1 and /D1, as you guys can see here. These were not found on the document. So I was just mentioning how important this /S1 is. And when I went to Control F, I actually couldn't find them, but I assumed it was because it was in a PDF, and that might have been a bad assumption. So let me see what's going on here. Workflow Wednesday, quote MT. Looks like I was the last one to open it. So let's see if I could have removed it. So here's our template. See, it's a pretty simple template. And really what should be going on here is if I hit Control F, /S1 should be found on the document, but we couldn't find what you're looking for. So let's go ahead and add it. Not too big of a deal. Let's go right here and let's do /S1. And now what I like to do to make life easier is I actually just make this white. And the reason why I do that is because now you're hiding that from the end user. So the end user doesn't necessarily see exactly where that is. They don't necessarily see, okay, that there's a recipient tag, as we call it, behind the scenes there. So you can just make those white. And now, just like before, you have really no clue that they're there. We could also have many others around here. So maybe I want to also have an initial be somewhere else on here. Maybe I want to have /I1 here. And I can white that out as well. So let me go ahead and file, save as, and let's just double check. Now when I do this, I should find that one. So there it is there. You can kind of see it, finding it in the white. So our JuicedSign will have no issue finding text as long as it's on the document. We will find it. You just have to make sure that you identify it correctly. Things to consider with that. Please make sure that it's not touching any other text. If it's touching sign here /S1, you would have to write it all out as sign here /S1. That's really important to understand. So, you want to make sure that it's kind of free floating in its own space, not touching anything. Like if my /I1 was touching this period, technically it would not find it. So just keep those kinds of things in mind because we want to make sure that you're able to find those texts. So I'm going to go ahead and browse and documents, and let's say, W tags. Not sure why they weren't there to begin with, but let's go ahead and edit this template. So now there used to be a choose file button here. There's not anymore with new forms. So I'm going to go ahead and get my MT with tags, drop it in. Yes, I want to replace and hit save. That's it. That's really all you should do. Now, one thing I did add was that /I1, and I don't believe I had it as /I1. So let's change client info to /I1 because that's my new tag. That's my new anchor string. So let's go ahead and find that. Where is it? Anchor string. Let's make /I1. And we have the X offset at 20. That looks fine. It's going to move that over 20 pixels. Something I did notice as well is we have signature and date just moving up 5 pixels. That looks right. I think that'll be just fine because we want it to be right on that line. So let's go ahead back here. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to regenerate this quote. Because if you don't regenerate your quote, technically it's using the quote from 10 minutes ago. So that quote from 10 minutes ago did not have my tags on it. So now if I Control F, see how it finds it there? You can see here highlighted. So that looks good to me. Now that that's there, let's go ahead and send a JuicedSign. Right. Now, when all works correctly, you'll see that there's no error right away. The error right away was because it couldn't even find those tags on the document. So now it's telling me, okay, Matthew telling us is the signer, and here's his email. He's order number 1, and he's a signer, and this is also captive recipient. So when I hit send a JuicedSign right now, I'm doing this in a captive method. And this is great if you're having people sign on an iPhone or a tablet or a Samsung. If you want to have them in person signing, you could have this done so that you say, okay, sign here. They can review the document right in person, right in front of you. So now when I hit start, it's going to take me all the way down to the document, and you see my click to sign here. So I can include my name. I can choose from any of the options here. Maybe I want this one. And also, maybe I want to move that over to the left more. So I would have my X axis be negative because I can see that this is overlapping over that date. So I can always go back in and change that. And you know what? Because of that, I'm going to maybe finish later. So say you opted to finish signing the agreement later. So I'm going to go back, and I'm not going to sign that one because I didn't like the way that overlapped. I can go back to my recipient tags and I can change that. But for the essence of time, one thing I want to show you guys too is maybe they just opened it and took no action. Now you might actually be able to see that where it says status opened, but they didn't necessarily do anything with it. And I know these iframes are a little small with the new forms. With the old forms, you're able to see a more, I guess, expanded view of them. But let's see, today's 8/9, so you can see I opened it at 2:39. And that's it. Delivered date, open date, but there's no sign date. So maybe you want to remind them, and let's just say it's 8/10 and they didn't sign yet, but this is a little bit urgent. You're supposed to come do the project tomorrow. You're supposed to install those AC units tomorrow. So maybe you just want to send them a simple text message. We've sent you a quote. So I can go and let's make sure that this is my number. I think it's Justin's. Hey, Justin, you want to get a text message? Because we're sending you a quote and you didn't sign.
Sure, send it over.
So we're sending Justin a text message and we're saying, hey, you didn't sign the quote. Well, we've sent you a quote. And this is just an option for, you may not want to have your personal phone be the one that's texting the client. That might not be professional. Maybe you want to have a standardized message. Maybe, you don't want to necessarily have your end users be able to, send from their own cell phones, So now we have sent today. Let's see, date time 8/9 at 2:41. We sent Justin a text message that said, hey, we sent you a quote. So now Justin might respond with, okay, just give me a moment. I'll sign soon. So hopefully Justin goes ahead and responds back.
Gotcha. I could confirm I got the text and I just responded right now.
All right. So let's go ahead and hit refresh. We'll scroll back down to the bottom. Tick tock, tick tock. And there, I'll sign soon. Thanks, Justin. So you can see that we have our inbound text now coming from Justin, sent back to us. I'll sign soon, and we received this successfully. Thankfully, our good friend James was able to color code this, so it makes it nice and clear that we had an outbound text and an inbound text. So now we know for this specific quote that Justin will sign soon. So let's go ahead and let's go back to our recipient tags. Let's make that quick change to the signature. Let's make
Matt, just so you know, though, you
It's
can't, because the agreement's already created,
right.
changing the tags here are not going to change them in the agreement because the agreement's in process, let's say. So
Right.
you'd have to actually void it and then recreate it in order to adjust the tags. So one of the benefits in the preview is before you even send it out, if you use the preview, you would have noticed that that sign tag needed to be jumped over to the left a little bit.
So you can void it, give a quick void reason. Okay, now we voided that. agreement. So good call out by Keith. You should be using the preview mode. So that's on me. I should have used the preview mode there to be able to see. So let's see if the preview mode shows me. And I actually, just so you guys know, you do get an email if you are the recipient that that agreement was voided. So now I can see, okay, that quote number was voided, and and the signer tag was invalid. So it gives you the reason why as well. So now I can go back and maybe I want to now preview the agreement. So instead of trying to figure out whether or not this is going to look right through actually sending it, I can use the preview. Select my recipient. Now I only have one here, so it's a pretty obvious choice. We'll expand this out and we'll scroll on down. And I'm not sure why it's not showing there, but we'll have to check on that. We'll have to use the preview agreement to find out why that's not showing there. It could be because that's using my old document. We'll have to check that. Let's see if we were to go to send now. I believe it's going to show me correctly on there. If you look confused.
You adjust the tag already on the tags table?
I believe I did. Could be because I didn't recreate it, maybe. Let's see how it looks here. So let's start, take you down to the bottom. Still not far enough, but you can see it did make a difference. So we're going to go ahead and sign that anyway. Save and finish. And congratulations, you're all set. So realistically, what should happen now is I should also get an email saying, here's your copy of the completed signed quote. So as the end user, maybe the homeowner, I get that completed signed quote option. And then as the salesperson or the account rep, I'm going to be able to come in here and I'm going to be able to see my finished signed document as well as my agreement certificate. And maybe now that I have had that sent successfully, I want to send them a text message again, if it loads, and say, thanks for signing the quote. Save. And I can send them back a text message. Not sure why it kicked me out the record. But I could say, hey, thanks for signing the quote, Justin. Should have just got another text in a moment that says, thanks for signing the quote. So you can see, I might have heard my ding. You can see that we have our JuicedSign quote, which is based off of our name here, JuicedSign quote. So I can see my finished product, which you can see the signature there at the bottom. And then I also have my JuicedSign quote certificate, which we opened up in a separate document here, where we can see here's my signer, that they signed the quote, and that, some other metadata for your liking. So those are the two things you get back once you have your finished quote signed. So really good stuff there, saved back to this specific quote record. So you always have a copy of it. No questions needed. You can see that the status is complete. If I were to go back to the bottom here now, after my voided document, you see my completed document here. And I could also review as well from my signers that I delivered it 244, opened 244, and signed at 245. So you're all set there as well. So that is, basically a 101 run through of a really simple application for CPQ, configure price quote. Now you can see that once you have that quote ready, you're actually ready for the next part of the CPQ, which is delivering the product, actually finishing. That's the project management portion of this. Now that's something we'll be going over at a future date. But for those of you who use Quickbase regularly, you know that that takes you kind of to the next step in your workflow. And that's actually delivering to the end user. So now that you have your signed quote, maybe you want to move to a contract, depending on how strenuous your guys' workflow is, and then hopefully get a new customer out of it and get paid. So we're got about 12 minutes to the top of the hour. I know we had a couple folks join after we had started, so I want to give you guys an opportunity just in case. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about this workflow, or about Exact Forms Plus, JuicedSign, or Text My QB. I know we didn't really go through Text My QB in its fullest, but you can see that we have our options to send text message, when it was sent, the status, and as well as from our text activities table, what was sent, who was sent to. Maybe Justin can send me a text back and say, you're welcome. As well as, just some other information.
One step ahead.
Oh, you did.
I did, yes.
What a guy. Let's refresh.
I've got manners.
And there's you're very welcome, good sir. Well, thank you.